Cheating wife decides to go on a date with a coworker. This decision ruined her life. My name is Kyle Martin, 34. I work as an IT manager at a mid-sized tech company. My wife, Sarah, 32, is a marketing executive. We've been married for 7 years and lived a comfortable life together. We shared dreams of starting a family soon, but lately, things felt different. It was Thursday, our designated date night. I had picked up takeout, looking forward to our usual evening on the couch. As I settled in, I noticed Sarah's phone buzzing. A message popped up. It was 5:30 p.m., and she texted me, "Work dinner with colleagues. Be home late." "Sure, have fun," I replied, trusting her completely. It was a routine we'd both grown comfortable with. But tonight, something felt off. I couldn't shake it. Was it the vague details? The rushed tone? I pushed the thoughts aside. As the hours passed, I glanced at the clock. 8 p.m., then 9 p.m. The food had grown cold, and I began to feel uneasy. I picked up my phone and checked our location sharing app. I thought maybe I could find comfort in knowing where she was. But when I saw her location, my heart sank. She was at a rooftop bar, not the restaurant downtown where she claimed to be. A sickening feeling gripped me. I had to know more. This wasn't just a work dinner. I grabbed my keys, feeling a mix of curiosity and dread. The drive felt endless. Thoughts raced in my mind, questions without answers. As I pulled up to the bar, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I might find. From my spot in the shadows, I watched. She was laughing, leaning close to a man. David, her coworker. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could see the chemistry between them. My heart raced, and anger bubbled just beneath the surface. This was supposed to be our night. The air felt heavy as I watched her touch his arm, their faces illuminated by the soft light around them. Trust shattered. My instincts had been right. I felt cold. I wanted to confront her, but part of me hesitated. I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture, needing proof of what I was seeing. It felt surreal, like a scene from a movie. I couldn't look away. As the night stretched on, the reality of the situation settled in. She was betraying everything we had built together. I felt a mixture of disbelief and rage, but mostly, I felt a profound sadness. I drove home in silence, my mind racing. She arrived hours later, slipping into bed as if nothing had happened. I lay next to her, staring at the ceiling, thoughts swirling. Tomorrow, I would confront her. This moment marked the beginning of the end. I had no idea how much things would change from this point forward. But one thing was clear, everything was about to unravel. The signs had been there, subtle yet unmistakable. Sarah and I had always been close, sharing everything from mundane daily details to our biggest dreams. But in the months leading up to that night, something shifted. It was as if a curtain had fallen between us, thickening the air with unspoken words. I remember the promotion Sarah received a few months back. She was excited, and I was proud. Long hours and business trips became her new norm. At first, I was supportive, encouraging her to excel in her career. I wanted her to thrive. But as the weeks turned into months, her enthusiasm seemed to morph into something else. Stress. Pressure. It was hard to tell. She would come home exhausted, often zoning out during dinner, staring at her plate instead of engaging in conversation. "Just a long day," she'd say when I asked if something was bothering her. I accepted her explanation, though a small part of me sensed that something deeper was at play. Then came the mention of David. At first, it was casual. "He's great at brainstorming ideas," she'd say, or, "we make a good team on projects." I nodded, trying to be supportive. But each mention felt like a seed of doubt was being planted in my mind. I dismissed it as paranoia, the kind that sometimes creeps in when you love someone deeply. But the mentions became more frequent. I found myself wondering who this guy was. I was used to being the one she shared everything with, but lately, it felt like I was being kept at a distance. When I asked her about him directly, she waved it off. "Just a coworker, Kyle. You're being silly." Silly. That word rang in my ears, reinforcing my feelings of insecurity. I didn't want to be the jealous husband. So, I kept quiet, convincing myself that I was imagining things. As the weeks rolled on, Sarah's late nights increased. She'd often leave before I woke up and come home well after I had gone to bed. I would hear her in the shower, the sound of running water washing away the tension that had built up between us. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing her. One weekend, I noticed her phone had notifications from social media. I usually respected her privacy, but curiosity got the better of me. I glanced over as she scrolled through her feed. Photos of her and David at a team event, smiling, laughing. They looked close. Too close. A knot tightened in my stomach, and I had to look away, forcing myself to focus on something else. The first time I confronted her about my concerns, I remember the look on her face, surprise mixed with annoyance. "You really think I'd cheat on you? Kyle, that's ridiculous." Her voice was sharp, cutting through the air. I backed off, apologizing for doubting her. I didn't want to fight. But as the weeks passed, my suspicions festered. I started to notice more signs. Texts that she would quickly hide when I entered the room, late-night phone calls that ended abruptly when I walked in. I began to feel like a stranger in my own home, an outsider looking in on a life that used to feel so secure. The day of that ill-fated dinner approached, and I felt a knot tightening in my chest. I tried to shake it off. It was just a work dinner, right? But deep down, I couldn't ignore the whispers of doubt. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust her completely, but that nagging feeling wouldn't go away. The day was uneventful, but as the hours ticked by, my anxiety grew. I finished work and arrived home early, hoping to surprise her with dinner. I set the table, placed our favorite takeout on the counter, and waited. The clock on the wall ticked ominously, each second a reminder that she wasn't there. When the text arrived, I tried to ignore the unease that washed over me. Work dinner with colleagues. I read it again, searching for reassurance. But the longer I waited, the more the shadows of doubt crept in. As I lay in bed that night, the house was filled with silence. The kind that felt heavy, oppressive. I replayed the day's events in my mind, realizing how much had changed. Trust, once an unshakable bond, felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter. The clock struck midnight when I heard her key in the door. She stepped inside, laughing softly, the sound echoing through the empty halls. I could see she was different, illuminated by the glow of streetlights. She was too carefree, too light-hearted, as if the weight of her day had been lifted away. In that moment, I knew that something significant had shifted. I couldn't ignore the warning signs any longer. Tomorrow, I would confront her. I couldn't continue living in this uncertainty. The thought of what I might uncover sent chills down my spine, but I had to know. It was time to face the truth. The days leading up to the night of the dinner were filled with an unsettling mix of anticipation and dread. Each morning, I woke up hoping for a sign that things were back to normal. I longed for our easy conversations and shared laughter. But with every passing hour, the gap between us widened. My trust felt like a fragile balloon, teetering on the edge of bursting. As Thursday approached, I felt a tightening in my chest. I tried to distract myself with work, focusing on projects and deadlines, but my mind kept wandering back to Sarah and her mysterious late nights. I couldn't shake the thought of David. Was it just a friendship? Or something more? That morning, I casually asked Sarah about the dinner. "What time should I expect you home?" I tried to sound relaxed, but I could hear the tension in my own voice. "Oh, you know how these things go. I'll probably be late," she replied, brushing it off with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just a few colleagues getting together to celebrate a project. Nothing to worry about." I nodded, but the unease grew. She left for work, and I spent the day wrestling with my thoughts. I couldn't help but replay every moment, every interaction we had in recent weeks. I wanted to trust her, but doubt not at me. I decided to do something I had never done before. I would check her location again. I hesitated, battling with my conscience, but curiosity won. I opened the app, heart racing as I watched the little dot move across the screen. I expected it to be at the restaurant she mentioned. But as I zoomed in, a pit formed in my stomach. She wasn't there. Instead, her location showed up at a rooftop bar across town, far removed from the corporate gathering I had envisioned. Time stood still as I processed the information. I quickly glanced at the clock. It was already past 6 p.m. My heart raced. I couldn't just sit here. I had to see for myself. The drive felt surreal. The world outside blurred, my focus solely on the destination ahead. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white as I navigated the streets. Each red light felt like an eternity, my mind racing with questions. What would I find? Would I see her with David? The thought sent shivers down my spine, but I needed to know. When I arrived at the bar, I parked a block away, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and stepped out of the car. The warm evening air enveloped me, but I felt cold inside. I approached the entrance slowly, trying to calm the chaos in my mind. Peering through the glass doors, I scanned the room. It was vibrant, filled with laughter and chatter. My heart sank when I spotted her. There she was, Sarah, sitting at a table with David. They were animated, leaning into each other, a bottle of wine between them. I felt as if the ground had dropped out from under me. The laughter that had always brought us joy now felt like a betrayal. I watched as she touched his arm, her laughter mingling with his. It was clear they were more than just colleagues. Time seemed to freeze as I stood there, a silent witness to a moment that would alter the course of our lives. I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture, needing proof of what I was seeing, something tangible to hold on to. I wanted to shout, to storm in and demand answers, but I stayed rooted in place, paralyzed by the weight of the reality before me. Minutes passed like hours. I could feel the tension in my chest tightening, suffocating. I was losing her right in front of my eyes, and yet I couldn't bring myself to confront her. I felt like an intruder in my own life, watching helplessly as she betrayed everything we had built together. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Sarah leaned in closer, her hand resting on David's. He whispered something that made her laugh, and I felt a surge of anger. How could she be so carefree? Didn't she realize what she was throwing away? Just then, she pulled out her phone, and I instinctively ducked behind a nearby pillar. I didn't want her to see me, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the scene unfolding before me. She typed a message, and I caught a glimpse of her screen. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow." My heart dropped. Tomorrow. What were they planning? As the night wore on, I watched them share intimate glances and playful touches. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a casual dinner. It was a date, filled with promises and excitement, and I was not part of it. At last, unable to bear it any longer, I turned and walked away, each step heavy with despair. I drove home in silence, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. The air felt thick and suffocating, each breath a reminder of what I had just witnessed. When I entered our home, it felt foreign. I could hear the hum of the fridge, the soft ticking of the clock, reminders of the life we had built together, now tainted by her choices. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the takeout I had ordered, now cold and untouched. The door opened, and Sarah walked in, her eyes bright, her laughter ringing through the house. I felt a mix of anger and sorrow welling up inside me, but I forced myself to remain calm. She was oblivious, carrying on as if nothing had happened. "Hey, I'm home. Did you eat?" she asked, her voice cheerful. I wanted to scream. Instead, I simply nodded, my heart heavy with unspoken words. As she chatted away, I felt like I was watching someone else's life, a stranger in my own home. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. My mind raced with thoughts of what I had seen, the betrayal etched in my memory. I realized that I couldn't stay silent any longer. Tomorrow, I would confront her. I would demand the truth. The illusion of our perfect life was shattered, and I could no longer ignore the reality of what had transpired. It was time to face the music, no matter how painful it would be. I needed answers. I needed closure. I needed to reclaim my life. The sun rose the next day, but it felt like a shroud had fallen over my heart. I had barely slept, the events of the previous night replaying in my mind like a broken record. I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts a chaotic whirlwind. I knew today was the day I had to confront Sarah. No more running from the truth, it was time to face the storm. I prepared for work with mechanical motions, each step weighed down by a heavy heart. I forced myself to eat breakfast, the food tasteless in my mouth. As I glanced at Sarah, who sat across the table scrolling through her phone, I felt a wave of anger wash over me. She looked so blissfully unaware of the chaos brewing beneath the surface. "Are you ready for your big meeting today?" I asked, trying to sound normal. "Yeah, I'm excited," she replied, a bright smile lighting up her face. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her out of this illusion. But instead, I nodded, forcing a smile of my own. Work felt like a blur. I couldn't concentrate on anything. My mind kept drifting back to Sarah and David, the image of them together burned into my memory. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart raced. Would it be her? Would she come clean? I knew deep down that she wouldn't. She had to be confronted. Finally, the clock struck 5. I left the office, heart pounding as I drove home. Each mile felt like an eternity. I practiced what I would say, the words swirling in my head. I needed to be calm, collected, but firm. I couldn't let her manipulate the situation, I had to take control. As I pulled into our driveway, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. The house loomed before me, a facade of normalcy that felt more like a prison. I stepped inside, the familiar smell of our home now tinged with bitterness. Sarah was already home, her work clothes replaced by casual loungewear. She greeted me with a cheerful, "Hey, honey." But it only fueled the fire inside me. I forced a smile, knowing that soon I would have to shatter this illusion. "Can we talk?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Her expression shifted slightly, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "Sure. What's up?" I motioned for her to sit down, my heart pounding louder with every passing second. As we settled at the dining table, the tension thickened the air between us. I could see her fidgeting, a telltale sign that she sensed something was off. "I saw you last night," I said, cutting straight to the point. She froze, the color draining from her face. "What do you mean?" she stammered, her eyes darting away from mine. "I saw you with David. At the bar," I continued, my voice firm but controlled. "You were laughing, touching his arm. It looked more like a date than a work dinner." Her facade cracked, the confidence she had carried just moments ago evaporating. "Kyle, I can explain." "Explain what?" I interrupted, the anger bubbling just below the surface. "That you're cheating on me. That you've betrayed everything we've built together." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I couldn't allow myself to feel pity. I had to stay strong. "I trusted you, Sarah. I defended you when doubts crept in. And now I find you with another man, acting like everything is fine." She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. The silence hung heavy between us, a palpable tension that felt almost suffocating. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she finally said, her voice barely a whisper. "I thought it was just a friendship." "A friendship?" I echoed, disbelief lacing my words. "You think that touching his arm and laughing together is a friendship? You crossed a line, and you know it." Her composure began to crumble, the facade of confidence falling away. "I was lonely, Kyle. You've been so wrapped up in work that I felt abandoned. I didn't know how to talk to you about it." "Lonely?" I shot back, incredulous. "So, you thought the solution was to betray me? To cheat? How does that even make sense?" "I never meant to hurt you," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I thought I could handle it." I was confused. Confused. I shook my head, frustration boiling over. "This isn't just confusion, Sarah. This is betrayal. This is breaking the trust we've built over years. You took our relationship and tossed it aside for some excitement." The reality of her actions hit her, and I could see the shame reflected in her eyes. But there was something else, defensiveness. "I didn't plan for it to go this far," she said, her voice rising. "You have to believe me." "Believe you?" I laughed bitterly. "Why should I believe anything you say now? You've already shown me who you really are. How can I trust you again?" The tears streamed down her face as she realized the gravity of her actions. I could feel my heart breaking for the woman I once loved, but the anger overshadowed it. "I need to know, Sarah," I said, my voice dropping to a low, intense tone. "Is this over? Are we done?" "I don't know," she replied, her voice trembling. "I care about you, but I don't know if I can go back to the way things were. I made a mistake." "A mistake?" I scoffed, the word feeling inadequate. "You didn't just make a mistake. You chose to be with another man. You made that decision. And now, you have to live with the consequences." The silence hung between us, thick with unresolved emotions. I could see the reality of her choices dawning on her, the weight of what she had done crashing down like a tidal wave. "Please, Kyle," she begged, desperation creeping into her voice. "I'll do anything to fix this. I love you. I want to make it right." "Love," I echoed, pain piercing through my chest. "Love doesn't betray. Love doesn't hurt the other person like this. You have to decide what you truly want." Her eyes widened in fear as the finality of my words sank in. What are you saying? I'm saying that I need space. I need to think. I can't keep doing this if you're not fully committed to repairing the damage. She looked at me, vulnerability etched across her face. I could see the realization that I wasn't just going to forgive and forget. It was time to take a stand for myself. I'll be at my brother's for a few days, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. You need to reflect on what you really want. And so do I. As I turned to leave the room, the weight of the moment settled heavily on my shoulders. I had confronted her, exposed the betrayal, and set boundaries. But as I walked away, I felt the sting of uncertainty. Would she fight for our marriage? Or was this truly the end? The silence of the house felt deafening as I packed a bag, each item a reminder of the life we had built together, now crumbling before my eyes. I didn't know what awaited us, but I knew I had to reclaim my sense of self. No more hiding, no more silence. I had taken the first step toward healing, even if it meant facing the pain head-on. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of the home I had known. It felt like a ghost of what once was. I had no idea what the future held, but I was determined to find my own way, regardless of what Sarah chose. The storm had arrived, and I was ready to face it, one way or another.